You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast on the We Are Libertarians Network. I'm your host, Jeremiah Morrell. As always, I'm joined by our co-host, Dakota Davis. That's the pause where we say, hi, Dakota.
Hey, guys.
All right. Our show is about our lives in rural Indiana. It's a show about folks who are involved in politics. We promise that our episodes are going to be a fun and an easy listen. We interview people who are influencers, elected officials, political experts, and folks we just find interesting. So today we have two guests with us. On my left, we'll introduce the guy on the left first, because since he's the returning guest, it's Chase Peyton.
What up?
How we doing, Chase?
Pretty good.
Glad to be here.
Oh,
you're wearing camo instead of plaid. I wore plaid today just to blend in because you gave me hell last time.
I'm a floating head.
That's all we can barely see over there. Barely see over there. The laughter you hear is coming from the right side of me. On the left side of your screen, if you're watching on the YouTube or the Facebook Live, it's Chad Malicoat. Chad is a friend of mine. We served on the Morrell Park Board together. He's the Grand Poobah of the Henry County Republican Club, and I guess, I don't know. You have any other cool titles, Chad?
I don't know. It seems like I get piled on new stuff all the time, but I'll take those for now.
Well, we're glad you're here. Dakota's just wandering off on me, so I'm just going to try to hold on to the show all by myself. He's probably checking on his puppy, Chase.
Probably.
We had this is a 2-episode show this week, or 2 shows this week. So Tuesday was the last quiet moment in my life before puppy adoption happened, and we picked up puppies Wednesday night, and today was the reckoning. So far it's actually gone better than I expected. It's like having an infant in the house. He has to go out and pee or do whatever every 2 hours or so, but it's been really good. No mistakes, no disasters yet. So, all in all, I guess it's been all right.
Oh, those are coming.
Yeah, I know.
Those are coming.
Yeah. I know. Dakota's got all these solid surface floors around his house, and I've got carpet, and I just know. Oh, I know the day is coming.
Invest in a good carpet cleaner.
It's kind of funny because our puppy is afraid of the hardwood floors.
Really?
So yeah, he hates standing on the hardwood floor, so he will like stand on the carpet because he knows that he'll slide around if he gets on it. Right? He's already learned that, and he will hop from the carpet to the little linoleum piece I have underneath the fireplace, and then he will hop to the floor into the kitchen. Terrified of the hardwood, already knows.
Yeah, mine hasn't had a problem with that. That's been good. Dakota has nothing. He's pointing to his ears. Is it plugged in? You look like you don't have a cord in there.
No, it's plugged in.
Did I unplug you?
I'm good.
I don't know. It's hard to know.
No, I just don't think that I'm loud enough on the microphone.
I can hear you.
I think you're loud enough there.
Maybe it's just my headphones.
You're okay.
All right.
If you feel good, I feel good.
I was worried about Jeremiah. You were really nervous last time I saw you about the dog.
I'm nervous about a lot of things nowadays. Wedding planning, my new dog life, but it's going all right. We got it set up, and I think it's going to be fun. It'll be better when Sarah gets here. I feel like a single parent right now, Chase. So, Chad, you've just recently gone through puppy stage again yourself, right?
Yep. We got one about middle of January, about a 10-year-old hound mix, and it's been an interesting year. But she's almost out of that phase.
10-month-old or 10-year-old?
She was 10 weeks old.
All right.
When we got her back in January. So
yeah.
So we've hit that year. She's smoothing out. Not tearing stuff up. I'm liking it.
I told everybody that this show was going to be about politics, but really it's just a support group for me with the new dog.
I like it.
So thanks for coaching me through this, Chad. So,
who's going to do the Bob Barker line? Have your pets spayed
have them spayed or neutered. Yeah.
Please have your pets spayed and neutered.
By the way, I found out the Bark Park. You remember the Bark Park yet here in town?
No, I have a yard for that.
Well, it's a place to socialize,
and I can walk them around Baker Park whenever I need to.
The Bark Park is $50 a year if you live out in the county like Chad and I do, but if you live in the city, it's only $45 a year.
Wow. Really? I get a $5 discount.
You do. It's run by the animal shelter, so I learned that one today. Each additional dog is $10, and they have to have all their shots, and you can't have a intact male or female.
How big?
That's
How
fine,
big is the
fine
dog
point.
park here?
The bark park. It looked like it was 2 separate pens, so you could have dogs that know each other running together, or you can kind of have some privacy too.
Okay.
I don't know. It looked decent. We may join up there as long as Darren Jacobs doesn't prohibit it somehow.
We
I see
have
Darren just joined in, so we'll pick on him.
Yeah, we have one down in Brookville where we stay, and it is. Let's see. It's a really big fenced off area for the dogs to run, and we call it it's called the poop park down there, not the bark park. The poop park. And it's kind of funny because like other dogs, you take them on a walk, you carry your little poop bag with them, and they'll poop on the walk. Daisy, we've trained her to walk really well, so I think that she's got it in her head that like walking is like real serious business, right? So walking is for walking and walking only. So she won't stop to poop or pee or smell or anything whenever she's walking.
She's got a mission.
Yeah, she's focused with the blinders on. So you have to take her to the poop park to get her to poop and pee, which is kind of inconvenient because it's across the street.
Because it's a hike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to take the golf cart there.
You have to drive a half mile with your dog to go to the bathroom.
So what do you guys name your dogs?
I think, as of this moment, this is not official.
Oh.
I think we're at Garth. I was kind of pulling for Fritz, but Audrey and Dakota made a decision that affected my dog's name. So you can make your big announcement, Dakota, and then I think we'll have a...
How did it affect your dog's name?
Because Hank is a country music name.
Oh.
And that meant that we were going to have to go with Garth because it was a finalist anyway. And then Sarah said, "I think we're going to name it Garth."
I really don't like the name Fritz.
It was a family name.
Was it really?
Yeah, my grandfather
you had a family member named Fritz.
No, my grandfather called everything he didn't like Fritz.
He didn't like. Yeah.
So you don't like the dog? Is that what you're saying?
It'll be all right. We're gonna have fun.
Okay.
We're gonna have fun.
my dog's name is Hank.
I'm really excited to teach my dog all the songs from the Garth Brooks collection.
That sounds good.
Friends in Low Places and That Summer and
That Summer.
Yeah,
Oh,
all the good songs.
Yep.
So,
all
right.
Ours is Hank the Tank because he's the chunky one.
He is. He's a little thick.
Yep, he is.
You've already got an obese puppy. He's 7 weeks old. He's in the 95th percentile. All right. I hear puppy talk going on downstairs. Yep. You got a house full of women here, and we're trying to do a podcast upstairs.
I can hear her yelling downstairs.
Somebody made a mess. All right, so enough messing around with that stuff. Chad, you've got all kinds of hats you wear. We in the introduction we mentioned that you're involved with the GOP club.
Yep.
And we've seen an awful lot of your people here lately coming through town. We've done this series on 6 congressional district campaigns, and there's a lot of Republicans running for an open seat. It doesn't happen very much over here, and every time you run, you get a pretty good it seems like a good jumping off point to higher things in Indiana. You got a vice president that came out of there, and
exactly.
a guy that was almost governor of Indiana, and David McIntosh, and then the next guy, there's a good chance he's going to be senator. So,
yep.
What's it been like being the GOP club? You organize these sorts of events where these people come in and they want to get to know Chad Malicoat. So I guess we do now too.
Well, so we have a club meeting every month. Normally the first Thursday of the month at our headquarters up on Broad Street.
Can't believe you counter-program the Boss Hog Liberty like that.
I know. I'm sorry. It's same time, different bat channel. So, so we bring in a lot of the same folks that you guys have too, and it's been a very interesting race. I mean, we've seen several people jump in to run for this 6th district, and then several people considering it that have changed their mind. I think you've had a few of those too.
Yep, so, absolutely. As Jonathan Lamb said, there's a 900-pound gorilla in the race, and there some want to wrestle it, and some just want to move on.
Exactly. So it should prove to be a very interesting race. I mean, I think we've got a lot of great candidates. That 900-pound gorilla included. It'll be interesting to see how that plays in. With the Trump slogan of "drain the swamp," and then somewhat of a connection there. It's going to be interesting dynamics.
We seem to keep hearing that. It's like some repetitive slogan that we keep hearing in this 6th congressional district is conservative outsider. I think we've had 2 people just on this show that have called themselves a conservative outsider, right?
I think that's so far.
Except one of them actually took a trip to Washington, D.C., so I think one of them is more outside than what the other one is.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed. They had a big talk last night over in Greenfield.
Yep.
We had the commissioners meeting here locally, so I couldn't attend, but I heard that was pretty interesting, and Well, we're getting all three of them in the room because Mike was there. I don't think you've had Mike on your show.
No, not yet. We're going to try to reschedule something. He had a death in the family the day we had him booked, so we had to make an adjustment, and then he's getting ready to go into the session. So as a state senator, this is going to be the busy time. So we're going to try to work something out, and we'll get Mike on at some point. I'm sure we'll make that right for the listeners.
So it's going to be interesting next year, but of course we've got a lot of races locally that are coming up. I mean, a lot of the county offices that are currently held by Republicans are going to be up for election next year. So
you're going to have people starting to file here in January, right? They can start filing. So you've got just a few more weeks, and we'll see the daggers come out inside the Republican Party between now and May.
Well, I know we're going to have a couple new faces that have already announced that they are going to run. Both very experienced and currently ed office. Bill Upchurch is going to run for treasurer.
Okay.
Because Gene is retiring. He's
Okay.
going to give it up and retire. And then Jenny is currently works in the clerk's office. Jenny Grubbs is going to run for the clerks. She's been there for years and very experienced.
What Jeremiah was just talking about with whenever he said we're going to see the daggers start flying. We've talked about it a couple times, how here in we talk about how Newcastle typically, because of like the old like the Chrysler, the old Union Democrats, still have a really strong foothold here in Newcastle as the city. But Henry County, speaking about those politics, when you actually get out into the county, it's dominated mainly by Republicans. Yeah, and it seems to be like there's two wings of the Republican Party. Like they always typically campaign against each other because that, like, it's not that they are radically different. You know, you don't have radical differences, but you have people
you have the big government Republicans and the bigger government Republicans. I think.
Well, now wait a minute. You have those established. We've got several folks. Well, the Democrats do too, that have been in office for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
And you've got those.
That's your
I know those daggers very well. I ran for office a couple years ago, and the new guy, and you know, it's a tough game to get into when you're competing against people that have been there for 20 plus years.
Yeah, listening to Clay Morgan talk, because if you're not someone who keeps up on this stuff, then you're not going to know that, right? You're not going to know that fact, and I think that it was talking to Clay Morgan on the show that really actually like made me learn about it. Like, so Clay, he's the Republican, but he's still on the outside with a lot of the Republicans, you know, like it's a totally different dynamic, because I think that we see that because there's not a strong other party within the outreaches of the
even
county.
Though he's been elected twice, he's still the new guy.
Right.
You know, he's still the new guy and probably will be for
Takes
at least
12 or 16 years
before you're at least 3 more elections.
Before you're not the rookie, right?
I mean, you look at the Democrat side on the council, you know, because that's about the only seats they hold.
I ran against Mr. Bouslag in the last cycle, and he served since 1978.
Yes.
Jimmy Carter's term.
He's been on there. And then Robin is not far behind him.
Yep.
Robin Fleming's been on there for quite a long time. So it's we have quite an establishment on both sides of the political spectrum in Henry County, and I think that's something I think it needs to change. I'm a term limits guy. I am a term limits guy. I think we don't need the establishment there forever. I mean, and the thing it's absolutely comical to me is every office except the decision makers is a term limit.
Right.
Every other office in the state, in the county, on
all
the
of
federal
the
level,
constitutional offices are term limited.
Yes.
The sheriff, the clerk, the treasurer, all of those you can serve 2 terms, and you have to take a cycle out.
Yep.
But you can be a council person or a commissioner or a congressman until you quit sucking air, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and I have gone back and forth with this personally with talking about term limits real quick. I've gone back and forth with it between being in favor of term limits and then also I wasn't in favor of term limits for some time, because I always thought, you know, we as the voters are supposed to be the term limits. And I mean, you know, that's really how it's set up. You know, we're the ones that are supposed to say, yeah, this guy like takes Rand Paul, for example. Rand Paul is doing a great job. Why would I ever want him to have to come out of office, right?
Yeah.
But then on the flip side of that coin, you know, you just don't. People don't think about it that way.
Well,
they vote along the party lines.
You'll sacrifice a Rand Paul to get rid of a John Conyers that's been there since JFK.
Yeah.
Just because you need to have motion and people changing and new ideas coming in. Or
Yes.
else you end up running a county like it's still 1976.
Well, but like you mentioned earlier, too, you've got a lot of these straight ticket folks, these union Democrats, these county Republicans, and they vote straight tickets, which, I mean, all of the parties love those straight ticket voters, but it also makes it a lot harder to turn and get new people in.
Right, absolutely.
Because, and unfortunately, and I stress this to everybody I talk to, you know, those local races are extremely important.
Yeah.
You know, everybody wants to watch the presidential race. It's exciting. It's all over the place. We get blasted on every news media in the world. But then you've got the local races where you only need 4 people to drastically change your taxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't need that.
That's what, you know, nobody thinks about your city council, your city clerk. You don't think about the school board. You know, nobody thinks about those types of things. But these are the people who have a real strong impact on your day-to-day lives.
It was either the county or the city of Bloomington. Either Monroe County or Bloomington last night passed a 1% food and beverage tax. They just raised their taxes by a 1-vote margin last night.
Yeah, it only takes 4 people. And it's hard. People don't believe you, but it is. It takes 4 people. It takes hundreds to do it on the state and national level, but it takes 4 people here locally. This county has raised taxes 4 times in the last 18 months. And
wow.
They've had more than 4 people vote yes, but they've raised taxes 4 times in the last 18 months. And that's not counting some other ones that could have almost been included.
That were close. So the GOP club, you're the president of that, I guess, and you said you're almost term limited on that.
Yes, again, we've got term limits in that. We can only hold 2 terms.
What's the difference in a GOP, like a GOP club versus the Republican Party? What's the help people that don't know the difference? What do they mean?
The GOP club is a support arm for the party. We are the door knockers, the phone callers. We also hold some events to raise funds for local candidates. So we help the local candidates. We also bring in a lot of folks to have meetings and educate the local. We've had the state party chairs. We had, you know, at the time, candidate Holcomb here. So we bring in a lot of interest, but we also get into local. We've had, you know, the Downtown Revitalization Group has come in and spoke. We've had Corey Murphy from the EDC to come in and speak. So we try to educate folks on local events. So we're an educational tool as well as a support arm for the party. The party still oversees all of the state functions, the county-wide functions and all those. But
getting on ballots and all of those sorts of things. But you're a booster organization, essentially.
Yeah, we're a booster organization.
Okay. So as the president of that booster organization, when you have these guys coming through town, like, you know, the Senate candidates, are they asking for Chad Malicoat's endorsement like they would a county chairman's endorsement? Have you signed up? Are you on any teams yet?
They all take pictures with me like it means anything. But no, and I try to stay very neutral.
So what does it take to be elected to the GOP club president? Like,
you have to be a member of the club, and then membership makes a nomination and votes to have you elected.
So it's all within the membership.
Yeah, it's all within the membership of the club.
Club itself, not the Republican Party.
No, it's not the party. I mean, we do work with the party very closely. The current chair, Todd Hyde, we work very closely with him, and he and I talk quite frequently.
Okay.
But no, it's all done through the party. We do charge them small little dues, like $15 dues to join the club.
Well,
okay.
I mean, libertarians charge you $25 to join the Libertarian Party. You guys, you're awful cheap there, Chad.
I guess we're
maybe he's taking
well,
some of our voters'
you can
share.
get a family membership, so we have to be competitive.
This is just individual. Man.
I was undecided until now.
That's true.
Yeah, man. If
$10 cheaper.
I probably have a card out in my truck.
He's got a Boss Hog and Liberty sticker now. Like
that's okay.
We've got him hammered down.
You know, at the end of the day, it's pretty. There's my Republican Party and the Libertarians are very similar in a lot of areas. We're, the establishment folks, the rhino types. I would not say the same.
They always say somebody else is a rhino. You notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody else is always the rhino.
Hey,
well, just like there's 2 conservative outsiders.
I doubt there are too many people who would call me a rhino.
I know.
So,
I'm just like, you're here, so we're going to pick on you. That's all.
Great. I love it. But no, so the club is very interesting. It's a lot of fun. We do the Christmas parties, the cookouts, that kind of stuff. Everybody, I'm sure you guys have probably seen or came to we sell our brats on the courthouse square. You know,
Yep.
we get about
Yep.
400 people there. I mean, so we get around and we.
Do you have to pay the county for that privilege to be on the courthouse square? Or how's that work?
No.
It's public space, so
It's
you're just
public
like, you won't
space,
get run off.
Well, that's, it's public space. We don't get run off, and actually most of those decision makers help us set the tents and stuff up. So it's good to be in the group.
Who's your replacement? Who's the
We
incoming
don't.
president?
It's an open election held in January.
Oh,
you go.
so you
So-
think you're done.
Well, I am done by term limits. So, and
Unless
honestly,
they amend the rules on the floor to keep you.
they could. I mean, they could do that, but I'm gonna.
I'm endorsing that right now. Chad
Okay.
for life.
Well, I'm hoping to move on to help some candidates next year, especially those new ones I was talking about. And to do that, to be the club president, you really have to stay kind of neutral in a primary elections.
Are you filing for anything?
Not as of now.
Not as of this moment. Still lots of time.
So
You know?
Mike Broyles, he asked on our live stream about windmills at Memorial Park, and the reason he would be asking about that is because you were recently appointed the park board president, correct?
Yep.
I'm park board president emeritus now, and Chad is the he's got the official hat now. He's
Passed the baton.
he's got it.
You know, I say we put windmills up at Memorial Park. We put a hydroelectric generating station there in the little tiny pond. Just bulldoze the golf course, put the generating station there.
We don't
I
have
think
a
it would
golf
work.
course anymore. That's private property.
Oh, it is now.
Yeah, that's not our.
What a shame. We can't even do anything.
Well, and that South 90 is not the parks really on paper, so that would be about the only place for windmills. So, I'm not sure we got the space.
Well, you know what? You just, with all the political power.
Although I would love to have all those funds that are here supposedly come from it. I'm sure that might help the parks
all the,
budget.
all the political power you have, you can get that residency abatement just knocked down. Like, just get rid of that. Put the windmills up so close to where they're just barely missing each other when they turn. Right?
just barely. As long as
Just
they're
barely.
turning.
I think that would go over really smoothly with the citizens of the county.
I'd have to see the financials before I could get behind it.
Chad is. I will say after working with Chad on the board, he's definitely the most financially astute of the group and understands the numbers and what the park is facing and what the county's facing from your run at county council. You definitely had dug in and we're up to speed. So when you jumped onto the park board in this last year or two, you were ready. You were ready to start right from the beginning.
It's a confusing nightmare, to put it lightly. I mean, it's the parks budget is submitted, but then it's completely controlled by the state.
Right.
So we have this is a county park, and it's a county park board.
It is a county park.
for one park.
Yes, for
Right.
one park.
So you'll hear, you look at stuff in the newspaper. If you follow our local newspaper, there's people, they use the term park board all the time. And half the time they're talking about Memorial Park Board, and half the time they're talking about the Newcastle City Parks, or they're talking about something else. So your budget process is set up where the park board asks for a certain amount of, they project a year, and then it gets submitted to the state, like you said.
Yeah, it gets submitted to the council first to review. And then from the council submits it to the state. And then once it comes back, we'll see what happens. I mean, the Umball report that was done here a while back.
About 2 years ago now.
Year and a half, 2 years ago, shows that we're going to drastically be cut over the next few years. We've been very fortunate that the commissioners have stepped in and taken over some of our
Some of the
bills.
obligations, some
So
insurance
to cushion,
and other things.
to cushion some of those cuts that they've done for us. They've been very helpful in picking that up because, as someone who travels frequently, people don't understand because they've lived here forever how fortunate we are to have a park to this caliber. Even though the buildings are starting to get run down, the ponds need drained. I mean, most counties, if they have a park, it's nothing more than a courthout square type thing.
A county park of that size is unheard of, especially around here, in Indiana. Like, it's if you go to tourist places, places that attract a lot of tourism, like Florida, like the Keys, or in Hawaii where we were, a county like that, a county can afford to have that type of a park because it attracts a bunch of tourists. Every year people go on vacation, and they might just be driving by, but they'll stop and look at a museum. They'll stop and look at, something, and they get a lot of revenue from that. It's not all taxpayer funded, and I think that's what a lot of people are missing whenever we talk about the finances of Memorial Park Board or the Memorial Park, because it's it is pretty much just basically just taxpayer funded. Like it's
we
you don't have a lot
operate-
of fundraising opportunities here.
Well, and we can't.
Right.
By law, we can't fundraise. We can't take in funds. That's why this new organization, the Friends of the Park, was formed, so they can fundraise and help support the park on the back end. But because the park is a government entity, I can't solicit a donation from anyone.
If somebody rents from the park or buys firewood or uses a shelter, or you've got when trees were sold a few years ago, that money goes into the park, and then certain amounts are able to be spent, and certain go back into the general fund. And
well, it actually all goes back to the general fund. It just matters how much the commissioner or the council
is able to
agree
reappropriate
to
back
give
to.
back to us.
Okay.
That's the thing. So it's we could, but people can do direct donations. We've had several of those. Folks who've wanted to build shelters. That's why shelters are named after people. Some of them paid to have those built.
Okay.
We've had different gazebos and things like that families have donated in memory of a loved one who passed or what have you. And so we've had that kind of stuff. Or people in the past have paid for different things. So, we can take direct donation, but to go out and fundraise and solicit, that's not something we can do. But, we run a park, 300-plus acres, depending on how many you really count, because the park also includes the soccer fields, the baseball diamonds. The park maintains all that. We even mow around the areas that are currently being leased out by farmers. Those grassy areas have to be mowed by the park. So there's a lot more that the park staff does than you just see in the actual park.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, it's a huge place. It's just you drive through Memorial Park. If you just take like a little stroll through there, you don't really think about the expanse of it, all the ground that it covers. It's quite large whenever you dig into it.
There are 2 or 3 key signature items inside of the park, or signature areas. You have a shelter house that I know is on the agenda to have upgrades and trying to make some improvements there. There's the W.G. Smith building, which is set for some improvements based on some food and beverage money that was set up for the county and the sale of the golf course. And then there's a very special monument as well. So I guess I want to get into all 3 of those and talk about the upgrades and what's going on now, because it's been an interesting process here in the last year. We've been working with the Hope Initiative and developing a plan for ways to not to save the park, but to make improvements going into the next 100 years. We're coming up on the 100-year anniversary of Memorial Park now. Yeah,
back at the first of the year, we were actually put everything on hold. When you were on the board, we had started a process with an outside company, Steel Corps, to manage a project to completely retrofit and upgrade the Smith building. That all got put on hold by the commissioners with some concerns and some different things. The council, even prior to that, had put in this a bond to raise some funds for us on top of that. So what ended up happening out of the Hope Initiative
process
study was that the park will take over for the Smith building and all that. The 4-H folks, they're separated into a new project that they are starting, which I know you're very well versed on. And that's actually where the bond ended up going, was to the 4-H. With the vote that was done back in June.
New 4-H Expo Center is going to be located just to the west of the Henry County Saddle Club, inside of the park footprint.
Yes. So we've started the process now. I'll start with the big shelter house. It's a gorgeous facility. Most people have been there at some point in their life. It's been there forever. It's been there for decades. They used to hold school dances and everything in there. But it has no HVAC, no insulation, no anything. So our real goal is to make that a year-round building. So that's going to be the main goal. It does have some issues now with some wood-boring beetles that must be addressed. Unfortunately, with the weather, we can't address that until the spring.
Are they napping right now? They're too cold to come out and
go
go after?
I think it's because of what you have to spray has to be at a certain temperature kind of thing.
I feel like you could sneak up on them right now, Chad.
I think you probably could. I mean, maybe those dogs. Maybe you could bring your dogs out and you guys could hunt them down for us.
They're all taking naps right now. It'd be easy.
So, but no, that's our real push, is to get that building, get it locked down, tightened up a little bit, new doors, things like that, and then put HVAC in there so people can have their Christmas parties, can have weddings in the middle of summer without being drenched from sweating.
I would have loved to have had my wedding out there, but there's still prohibition against alcohol out there, and I don't want to get in trouble, so we're gonna do it somewhere else. But lost out on the big Morrell wedding of 2018.
We might have made a variance just for you.
I don't want too much special treatment.
You could have come to the board and talked to us. That's something that probably will be addressed at some point.
Jeremiah, you still got like 7 months.
Yeah.
You can just wait on a venue and have Chad change your rules for you.
And I do bet you that the venue we have is very reasonable compared to most.
I know.
$150 a day, that's hard to beat.
It's probably
pretty
not as
solid.
cheap as his brother's house, though.
I don't know. I think I'm going to have to pay in other ways.
Yeah, it's probably going to be way cheaper. So with the Smith building, that building has been everything. And a lot of people don't realize that building was actually the highway department at one point.
Really?
That's what it used to be.
I had no idea.
Was the highway. That's why if you go in, you stay on the second floor, you'll see the archway door looking things. It was garage doors.
Yeah, you can
so that
still
was
see
the highway department.
The leftover big bays that are there.
That was a 4-H facility. I mean, they used to hold the shows right there in the building in those floors and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's been around a long time. Unfortunately, it's just gotten really run down. The electrical, the HVAC, the lighting, there's lots of things that need to be addressed. It's not crumbling. It's not falling apart, but it is just getting run down. It needs
aging.
to be fixed. We fixed the roof. We had a tarp on the roof for only 3.5 years. Before we finally got
honestly, we went through a few tarps.
I was going to say, there was more than one tarp. That's
not just
true.
one tarp on the
roof.
There
was a few tarps that we went through, and so we finally got that. But the way we got the money for this is food and beverage money. The county, Jeremiah was actually on the board at the time. I wasn't on yet. They went after the money from food and beverage, and we were awarded $420-some thousand, give or take. It's a little $400,000 with a matching grant of $100,000+. We had to have a 20% match that we got from the
proceeds of the sale of the golf course.
Sale of the golf course monies. So there was about $500,000 there. We've used some of it to fix different projects throughout the park, but there's still about $400,000, give or take, there that we've got to utilize to do the rehab of the park. There's also some funds that we received from the park board. At the meeting back in June 19th, the council and the commissioners both agreed for the park to retain that sale of the golf course money because that's what was in the original contract. When the Neals purchased that facility, when Randy purchased that, it was all to go to the park to maintain the park.
Okay.
So there's about, give or take, $400,000+ left in that as well.
Interesting.
So Chase, you've lived in Henry County your whole life.
Yes.
Do you go to the park at all? What do you use? What tell me about your experiences out there.
Well, I went to the park a lot in school. Just hanging out with friends. They would give us something to do. I haven't been there a lot recently, but just to hang out, walk around, stuff like that. I've never. The Smith building, that's the building right by the
big building right in the middle, right on 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. I didn't know there were tarps on it. That's kind of freaky.
Not anymore. There's a roof on
No,
there.
we got a brand new roof. It's
nice.
cool. It's great.
I might have to walk by it.
Yeah. Well, you can go in it and not
I used
get
to
wet.
feed the ducks.
Yeah.
There's a new building proposed, right?
Is that the 4-H facility or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a.
What's the timeline looking like for that?
The goal on that is for them to start construction next year. There's a fundraising process that's underway. That group is not going to be county controlled. It's going to be its own 501c3.
Okay.
So that's not Chad's group necessarily. That's the 4-H Expo Center board that's just now been formed, and they're working on their 501c3 and developing.
We're just
their fundraising.
supportive of each other. That's our role. Our role is not any direct oversight or anything. We support. We did offer our vote on that monies that was from the bond, which was about $1.2 million. The board voted unanimously back when Jeremiah was on there to gift that over to them without any problems. So
that group is going to be a lot like the Saddle Club in their organization, where they're an independent 501c3 that peacefully exists within the confines of the park, but doesn't they don't report to each other necessarily. No. The goal is just to be good neighbors. So going back to the Smith building, you've upstairs you're renovating, and then downstairs and outside the current plan, as I understand it, is to convert the basement into because the whole park is a memorial park. It's going to be an interactive memorial or museum with displays set up and something to honor veterans. Because right now when you go into the Smith building, there's a small case that has the USS Hyman and some other trophies or memorabilia.
Yeah, there's
But
some memorabilia
it's basically
there,
to expand that into the basement.
it's very minimal. We're going to take the entire bottom floor. There are currently, we haven't settled on exactly who's going to oversee the museum portion of it, but it'll be an independent organization that will take care of that, but we'll provide the space for them. They are telling me that they've gotten offers of all kinds of amazing. I mean, someone offered their father's World War I uniforms and different memorabilia like that. There's all kinds of. We've had artists that have come forward and willing to paint and spend time, and it will be a really interesting place. It's a memorial park. A lot of people just say that and don't even know what it means. We have quite a number of monuments all over the park for just about every campaign that this country's been in, starting with the Doughboy from World War I we have at the park. So it's a really interesting way to just walk around and take in a lot of history. And then we're going to bring this museum to really focal point right in the middle of the park at the Smith Building to offer
it sounds awesome.
Some of those things
really
we can't
cool.
put outside, like, a
uniform, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have that. Obviously, the Doughboy has been a hot topic right now.
So Doughboy is the shorthand. It's the spirit of the American Doughboy,
Yep.
and it was it's supposed to represent what World War I soldiers were called,
Right, yeah,
Doughboys.
the Doughboy statue is a nationwide type monument. Like there were a bunch of these made. They were mass produced in the 1920s and the 1930s to memorialize World War I veterans, because America was just coming out of that conflict, right? We'd been out of it for a little while, but we were still memorializing the veterans, just like we always do with veterans of wars that we're involved in. So Newcastle, or Henry County, Indiana, got the Doughboy statue. It was in 1925, correct?
29, I believe.
Is it 29?
88 years. It's been on the site for 88 years. It may have been 25 when they knew they were getting one. That's very possible.
It was dedicated and put in there in Memorial Park, and they went kind of traditional. A lot of them were placed in woods, on mounds, or on boulders, on things. I think that I read today that the Smithsonian said that there was 159 of them placed in counties across the United States. But
well, there was over 1,000 when they were originally commissioned.
Okay.
Surviving are, I think, the numbers that it's hard to get an exact number, but surviving still displayed is just 120-ish,
right,
kind of.
There's another one in Indiana down in Owen County on the Courthouse Square. I've seen that one with my own eyes. And I think that Monticello, Kentucky maybe has one.
I think so.
And then there are some other more famous ones.
Chicago, Illinois.
There was one in Lincoln Park that's gone now.
Yeah,
but that was, as we've read recently, I guess the one in Henry County was kind of modeled after that one. But I looked for it. I was in Lincoln Park pretty recently and looked around, and it's not there anymore. It's been gone since the 40s.
Yeah, it's been gone a long time.
Yeah.
So the Doughboy, the original plan after was to refurbish him, which is exactly what's happening now. He is currently up in Michigan. He is being completely refurbished. He's been through quite a bit in 88 years. He's been through a lot of weather. He's been through a lot of idiot kids who vandalize him and steal things and break things off and do those things. So we've had a lot of different things like that have happened over the years. The rifle was taken for several decades before it was recovered. And then it was not recovered with the bayonet.
What happened to the rifle?
Someone sawed it off and took it
Kept
home.
it as a souvenir.
Really? I didn't know that.
I don't know.
How did they get it back?
I don't know the exact story, to be honest with you. I think it was it finally got...
Somebody finally grew up.
It reappeared mysteriously after 20-plus years.
Wow.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard it was hanging by a wire or something. I don't know.
I think it was on a post. It was on a concrete slab, and then there's a post that comes up through the feet. You mean the statue itself or the rifle?
The rifle.
The rifle was actually, our park superintendent, Lori Davis, had it reattached a few years ago because it did not get back on the statue until a few years ago, and so she had it reattached, and it was actually welded to it, soldered to it, so it was on there permanently, but it was still not
cut a wire now, Chase.
Yeah, it wasn't just some chicken wire out there that wrapped around it, but no. So, but right now he's up in Michigan. He's going to be completely refurbished and come back looking phenomenal.
Yep.
So
what I have here, I pulled this from just a Wikipedia article. This little, you can see on your show notes, the little paragraph in italics, and it talking about the spirit of the American Doughboy, it says it was installed in cemeteries, town squares, parks, outside museums, on courthouse lawns, and countless other places. The design is said to be the most viewed example of outdoor statuary in the U.S. after the Statue of Liberty. Like, it's a big thing, you know. Well, this Doughboy is. I guess most people don't even know. Like,
and that brings up a good point, because with all the stuff that's come up about this, I've been asking a lot of people. For those who don't know what we're talking about,
this would be a good one to ask Chase. Chase, where's the Doughboy?
I did not know where the Doughboy was. And I even had to look it up. I Googled it once I knew we were going to talk about it. So I Googled it. I wasn't sure what it looked like exactly. So when I heard dough, I started thinking donuts, and I got hungry. I'm still a little hungry. I want some
Pillsbury.
There is a Pillsbury Doughboy picture out there.
But
right
no,
now.
I didn't know where it was located at all.
Yeah. So no, he is located on 3.
Okay.
At the very far north end of the park, very close to the maintenance building and the superintendent's home. So he's in that very far. He sits up on the hill.
The Pokemon people call that Mosquito Hill, by the way, inside the Pokemon group, because there's a mosquito problem there in the woods.
There is a mosquito problem in that part of the woods,
and those guys know that you have to hike to it. It is not. It's not right next door.
No, it is quite a hike to get to it from anywhere.
And the people that are, well, I guess we haven't really gotten into the plan for it yet, have we?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going. The plan was, at the time, because it is so inaccessible right now where it's at, there's no way to get any kind of a field trip there, because it would never meet any ADA compliance. There's just no way. So we at the time, when Jeremiah was on the board, it was brought to us a plan to relocate the monument to the front of the Smith building where the museum was going to be, and create what they're calling a flag pavilion, to have a flag from every branch of the service, as well as the American flag and the POW flag, to surround it and bring it to a spot that was accessible, that people can actually go see. Because it is, one of our board members adequately, described it as a piece of art. It's nice to look at when you're zooming past 60 miles an hour up on a hill, but until you can get and actually see face to face, look eye to eye, and see the expression. I mean, the sculptor did an amazing job with these. I mean, so far detail, you can see the teeth of the open mouth of the statue. So it's really a very impressive thing that, but unfortunately, a far cry, not near enough of Henry County presidents have seen up close.
In the current location, you don't know to even look. You've driven by it your entire life, Chase, right? And
I've
never see it.
Noticed it.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, he's not waving at you.
He's
about to blow you up.
Yeah, he's throwing it. He has a rifle in one hand and he's throwing a grenade, and that was the whole reason that they sculpted that statue. They made it in such a brutal manner. I mean, especially for that time period. We didn't have video games, television, and stuff like that to where we watched war movies, and there was no war scenes on television at that time. So this was like a culture shock for the people who weren't talking to the veterans firsthand, right?
Yeah.
And that's how they were educated about this, was a piece of art. So it kind of seems strange to me to have this piece of art that was supposed to be seen by people and supposed to educate people, have it out in the middle of woods where nobody can see it or observe it.
Yeah, and a lot of people agreed. We went through this process. There were, give or take, 130 people involved in this Hope Initiative process. Steve Peckinpah has overseen this committee, the Monuments Committee, that made the recommendation to move it, and he's done a phenomenal job. So it did not come to light, or did not come to a real impasse with some people until Wish TV came down when they removed the monument to be refurbished. And at that time, that seemed to get some people's attention. So, and a lot of folks have asked about the financing of it. The park did commit $8,000 from the golf course proceeds. So we committed basically $8,000 towards
of $500,000.
Yes, towards a project that's going to be roughly $45,000 to complete.
Right.
Just the renovation itself of the statue was going to be over $10,000.
And how did we finance that, Chad?
The rest, the $8,000 or the The other money?
The balance
Just
is being raised by veterans organizations.
It's being raised by Steve Peckinpah is heading up that, and he's selling the flags, which if anyone's interested, reach out. But he still has some available to families to put in for their loved one, their family member, current existing family members that are in the military or connected and want to sponsor those.
Absolutely.
We've had veterans associations, VAWs, things like that have donated. I think a few weeks ago, the Middletown News had some on the front page of the paper.
You've met a heavy resistance since it's been announced. Since it was on the news, I guess.
We have, and it's most folks, when I talk to them, their response is, well, that's where it's always been.
Right. And see, the thing that I think that I've picked up on, if you've listened to the show, I frequent Facebook groups like Citizens of Henry County, right? And that's my public interaction, right there,
You haven't told anybody that, right? I actually started that years ago.
Did you really?
Yes,
yeah, Chad started it, and that's where we became friends.
He was my original moderator, my first moderator that I added admin to.
Oh, my.
Yeah, Jeremiah and I started that mess.
Yep. Until I got out when Rex Belgrade was running for governor. I said, I cannot do this anymore.
And
I
got out when I ran.
I love that group. I mean, I seriously do. I love that group. It gets a lot of opinions for stuff that we do on the show, and talking about the Doughboy, I think that I've ran across a little bit of a pattern in the people that are for moving the Doughboy and the people who are against moving the Doughboy. And I pointed this out talking to some people that that aren't in agreement with the current plan. But I think that it's more of a generational gap. Okay. I think that a lot of the people that it would be easy for me to sit back here and say these are old people and they don't like change, right? It's super easy to just make that assumption and not think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But whenever you sit back and look at it, these people they know firsthand people who might have served in World War I, or they've read the journals of someone, they've seen their grandfather's war medals from World War I. He was a Doughboy. There's a personal connection there to where people like me and Chase, whenever we're sitting back here and we're talking about the Doughboy,
you barely know World War II veterans.
Yeah, the only time that we've read anything about World War I is we know that somebody shot an Archduke and they fought in trenches. Like that. It's a distant thing to where it's not even on my radar, right? Like I've read books about it. They don't even make movies about it anymore.
Yeah, I think my great grandma was like 4 when the war was going on, World War II. So I don't know.
See, it's such a generational gap, and I think that these people are a lot more sentimental about it because they know people that this statue memorializes. But people like Chase and myself and you guys view this as a piece of art that should be viewed and appreciated by the public, right?
Well, I think that's the goal of the park board at the time, was to try to bring it to a focal point where people could enjoy it and actually see it. And because it's current, we live in a county that is one of the most aged counties in the state. That also we have one of the highest per capita of disabled citizens. And right now there's a big chunk of our citizenry that just couldn't get to it. Right. I mean, it's not easy to hike up there to find the place to start with, and then there are so few folks that have just never known it existed, like yourself,
myself,
that just didn't even know anything about it. And if it was sitting right in front of the Smith Building and 100, where people drive within feet of it often.
And if you look at, and I'm sure you guys have a park board meeting on Monday, correct?
We do,
and you're going to be discussing and getting public input about this issue.
Yeah,
correct?
The decision was made back in August to do this, but that it wasn't. It's something we're willing to relook, because I think it's important to listen to people and listen to people's thoughts, and there may be some. It's great to get more people involved, and they may come out with a phenomenal idea. But I think the real goal we're trying to achieve is just make the Doughboy accessible to everybody.
Well, I would totally agree with that. And are you guys going to have any kind of imagery up of what it's supposed to look like whenever it's finished?
There is an image that was published with flagpoles.
It was a quick one thrown together that unfortunately does show it right in the middle of a parking lot, which is kind of a statement I've taken a little bit of a fence to, because it is going to be
Yeah.
in the middle of a flag pavilion. It's going to look very similar to what you would see like when the one you saw down in Owen County's Courthouse Square, like the Civil War soldier on our courthouse square. It's going to be something very similar to that kind of thing. It's not like you're going to pull up and park right next to it.
Yeah.
So it is a current parking lot area.
I've heard that a lot
but
too.
It's not going in.
They're
a
just
parking
putting it
lot.
in the middle of a parking lot.
It's going into a rebuilt.
I saw that image, and I compared it to some of the others that I saw online, and it looks really nice.
Yeah, so
Yes.
there is an image that is being put together now that gives a better depiction of exactly what they'll see with the flags and
Awesome.
the some stones.
Are you prepared for a barrage of people that are going to be wearing bracelets that say our Doughboy"? Say our Doughboy.
I saw that on Facebook. I think that's a very, very misleading statement because I agree. I'd wear one of those bracelets because we are saving the Doughboy.
Well, I
We're
think
already doing that.
That's a very important
If we
point,
didn't do
Chad.
anything with it, it would.
If this process hadn't started, coming out of the Hope process, that Doughboy would continue to sit on the same spot and be in decay and wouldn't be in Michigan right now getting rehabbed.
Yeah,
Right.
it probably had a decade or two, maybe tops, before it would have just disintegrated to the point of no return. And so that's where we were at. I mean, like I said, there's only roughly 12-15% of these things left after 80 plus years. And
So, if people want to come and participate and voice their opinion in favor of moving it towards the Smith Building or reinstalling it at the previous location, they come to the Park Board meeting on Monday at 7 o'clock at the Smith Building?
We're going to have a Park Board meeting. We're going to hold the meeting at the end of our regular meeting. We're going to try to have a pretty short regular meeting because we're expecting some comment. We're going to do it very similar to the meetings that the commissioners have held, where everybody wants to speak, signs in. They get a few minutes to make their point, and then once everybody goes through their points, then the Park Board will be open to make their comments or make any motions that any of the members of the board might be interested in making. But like I say, right now the decision has already been voted on, but we could amend that vote.
Okay. And this is one of those things. I know I personally am in favor of moving the Doughboy, okay? But I also believe that everybody needs to have their voice heard. So I would call out to the people that we have listened to this, the 500 people that are going to hear us just tonight, that if you live within the county, and you have a strong opinion about this, or maybe it just doesn't bother you, but if you have an opinion about this, then you need to say something. You can't just get on Facebook and then complain about it later after the thing that you didn't like got done, right?
Yeah.
You have
Absolutely. I've encouraged everybody to come. We want to hear from everyone. Everyone's opinion matters. I mean, it's unfortunately you can't make everybody happy at the end of the day because this is something that's full of passion. If you saw Travis's article in the paper, we had a couple get pretty aggressive last time. I mean,
there's a
I thought
lot
I
of
was going to have
strong
to separate
opinions, right?
a couple guys in a meeting. First Park Board meeting, I've had to do that.
I ran things with a tighter ship
I'm
than you
telling
did,
you,
Chad.
maybe you were just more intimidating or something. I don't know what it was, but no. So there's a lot of strong feelings, but we also live in a world of facts, and that's what we have. People are passionate about this thing, but we also have to understand there's reasoning behind the decisions that were made, and we have to try to accommodate those reasoning to make it accessible. And hopefully somebody's got a great idea out there that works, that's differently than what we're considering now. And,
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing what comes out of that meeting on Monday. I'm going to be out of town. But I think Dakota's going to go and cover on behalf of Boss Hog Liberty.
I'm going to try to make it. I'll bring
I'll make sure your name's on the list.
My staple leather-bound notebook that I take.
He can
to
have
the
my
city
3 minutes
council
also.
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I get 6 minutes. There we go.
There you go.
I was deferring his 3 minutes. All
I
right,
yield
Chase?
my time to the gentleman from north of Q
I
Avenue.
might show up.
Hey, Chase, will you go with me?
I'll go with you.
We'll go to
Okay.
B-Dubs afterwards and grab a beer.
Okay.
That almost
right.
sounds like bribery.
You can also have my 3 minutes.
Oh,
Up
wow.
to 9. All right.
9 minutes.
There you go.
Maybe the president will throw me 1 minute so I can have an even 10.
We probably let us stretch.
The Libertarian Minute. So, if you're new to listening to the show, this is the Boss Hog Liberty podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, Jeremiah Morrell, and on my left is Dakota Davis. We're joined by Chase Peyton, who is a 20-something millennial from Henry County all his life, and then we're joined by the guy that's over 40 in the room, Chad Malicoat, the park board
I'm the
president.
old man here. I got a bunch of kids I'm here with.
Are you over 40?
I am. I'm 41.
Oh, I thought you were just 40.
No, I hit 41 last
But you still have less gray hairs than Jeremiah.
That's
Thanks
true,
for that,
you know.
Dakota.
Good genes, man. Good genes.
Thanks for that.
It's just
And
because-
more hair. I think he's got a little less.
I've known the Malicoats my whole life. I used to show horses against his baby brother, and
Well, it's just
we
like
did a lot of
He turned
it's just like
35.
Jeremiah brought up.
34.
30.
35
He
next
turned-
year.
Justin turned 35
Yeah,
yesterday.
he's much
My
older
brother.
than I am.
2 years. Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
Ooh, man. It's
Hey.
going to start getting heated. Am I going to have to separate you two?
Dakota's about to turn 22. He's getting pretty old.
I know. Look at that. He got
Yeah.
married.
Be 22 again.
He's an old soul. So on this show, we focus on local issues, and we also spend some time talking about national stuff. So we'll let the park board thing rest for now.
Okay.
May come back to it in final thoughts. I don't know if somebody else comes in with a zinger here on the comments as we do the live stream. But we also wanted to talk about the Alabama Senate seat, because the U.S. Senate is something we watch, and Donald Trump caused this mess when he appointed that guy from Alabama to be our attorney general.
He did.
And now it's come back to bite him. He thought he was going to run the guy out before they even had a special election to fill his seat, but Jeff Sessions is still serving, Prohibition Jeff, and now they're going to have their third senator in a year down there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It was just one that was all over the place. I mean, who knew how to call that kind of a race, and lots going on. But
Yeah, there's been so much going on with this Alabama Senate race, as far as like Doug Jones, Roy Moore. You have the sexual assault allegations come out against Roy Moore, and then it's child molestation, calling him a pedophile. And you have what seems to be proof of the writing in the yearbook, and then all of a sudden the groundbreaking article comes out that she admits to forging some of the things in the yearbook. So you're just like, if you're watching this on a timeline as it all goes along, you're like, holy cow, like what is going to happen in Alabama? Because as it stands right now, Alabama is the third most conservative state in the United States.
yeah,
Very red state down there. Like it's not even like here where we have the Democrats in the city, but then out in the county we have the Republicans. It's just straight up red.
The last time they elected a Democrat as a senator, it was a guy that's serving now as a Republican. He was elected in 1992.
Yeah, that was actually a man called Richard Shelby. He was elected in 1992 as a Democrat, and then in the 90s there was the Republican Revolution, like revolutionizing the Republican Party, and that's whenever he decided to go to Republican in 1994. So like he was a Democrat for 2 years.
Yeah, and then the Republicans took over control of the House and the Senate, and he said, "I like the majority more."
Yeah, right. So that's
Power of incumbency.
like it's
I'll be a
crazy.
Republican, sure.
Like this whole Alabama race has been just a wild ride, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Roy Moore was guilty and that he's a pedophile and a child molester. I'm not going to sit here and say that because we don't know. Right?
He probably was, though.
I mean, we can
Probably.
It's.
I'm not going to say that. I mean, it's
so hard to look. It
is. I mean, that's how do you prove a negative? I mean,
because I would certainly like to have my mind made up for me that he definitely was a child molester, and I lean towards more the women who.
If he wasn't a
who make
molester,
those
he was certainly a
claims.
child dater.
Yeah, that was.
He tried.
That was the first woman that came forward actually with the allegations. Said that whenever she was 16 and he was 28.
Yeah,
they were dating, and that's whenever it all got crazy, and you had people in the media that were like, well, back then, any parent should have been honored that their 16-year-old daughter was dating a lawyer, and I'm like, holy cow! Or like,
Chad, tell us about the 70s. We missed it.
the thing that was
I only
most
saw 4 of them, 4 years of that stuff.
the thing that was most shocking to me about this entire race was the response from establishment Republicans. Like, it was mind-numbingly stupid, the remarks that you got, right? It was so much defense of, and it wasn't even like, well, these allegations are just BS. It was making excuses as to,
Well, but
maybe
there was a
he
lot
did it,
that
but
came out on both sides of that. There were a lot of
yeah.
them that came out and wanted to vilify him right away. But, it's 40 years ago. There was the timing. It's one of those timing things. That I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't tell you. I think that but anybody can say anything.
Yeah, so whenever
and that's
whenever
the
we
hard part.
decided that we wanted to do this on the show, that's what all this talking that we're doing right now was what my original thought was, right? That's what I thought we were going to talk about for the remaining 30 minutes that we have, right? And then I started looking into like the demographics of this vote, and if like on your show notes, this week actually has 2 pages.
Yeah,
Because
you have expanded beyond our wildest dreams, Dakota.
Yeah,
It was
impressive.
I had to do the show notes
astounding.
myself for Tuesday's show because you went crazy.
And it was.
So I will say, as you guys are kind of reviewing this, this is my plea for ballot access, and for God's sake, please make it easier to get people on the ballot. In the state of Alabama, if you are wanting to get on the ballot, you have to have, and you're not the Republican or the Democratic candidate, your party has to have had 20% in a statewide race in the last cycle, which essentially sets you up, unless you have a miraculous run, you're going to have 2 people on the ballot, and that's it. If we, as the Libertarians, the Libertarian Party got on the ballot with Gary Johnson the last time, they had time to actually do it. This was a special election, so you really didn't have time to get on a ballot. But you have to have signatures from 3% of the voters that turned out. So if you had, 100,000 people that voted, then you would have to have 3,000 signatures. In this case, you would have needed to come up with about 25,000 signatures to make that happen. Is that right? You had.
Yeah, you would
have to about 60,000.
Yeah, you'd have to have
case.
about 60,000 voters.
Because they had 1.5% was 44,000, so you would have had at least 25,000 times 2. It would be 50,000 plus, and that's how signature collection goes in Indiana. Just ask Senator Young. You really ought to have more than the bare minimum, because certain areas you might be in trouble unless you find a friendly judge.
Yeah, no problem.
497 works in Lake County, unless you're Jim Wallace, and then you get thrown off the ballot when you want to run against Mike Pence. So I wish Andy Horning very good luck as he's running for the U.S. Senate seat as a Republican. Team Elephant. Anyway, this is my plea. We got to make ballot access easier everywhere. You need to get rid of straight ticket voting so that these races are not this Coke and Pepsi, blue pill, red pill.
It's so interesting in some different localities. Even here, there are races where like in some state or some cities, the mayor race can't be partisan, so you can't run for mayor. And I believe, is it Arizona?
City of Phoenix right now.
Arizona.
It's nonpartisan for mayor.
It's nonpartisan, so no parties are on the ballot for mayor. It's an individual name. I like that for local races. I really do.
School boards here are nonpartisan.
Yeah, school boards are nonpartisan. They've kind of, they did, obviously, I'm sure you've talked about this in the past, changing the council vote.
Council doesn't have straight ticket voting anymore, but it's still partisan.
So it is, yes, they still have their party there, but the council no longer. If you straight ticket vote, you don't vote for a councilman.
Right. Yeah. Especially
you have to individually pick your 1, 2, or 3 candidates.
Yes,
that was
I think that is a start
last year
to a potential eventual non straight ticket type voting. There's been a lot of talk at the State House about that in Indiana. I would be all for it. I think
that's saying a lot coming from a Republican head of a 60% Republican county that you're willing to give that up, because that is politically, it's probably not the best thing, but it is what's best for the county, I think.
It is, and that's what the thing is. I think yes, I'm a Republican. I'm absolutely a strong conservative. I call myself a constitutional conservative Republican.
You introduced Ted Cruz, for God's sake.
I did.
I watched it happen.
Yeah, split screen with Megyn Kelly. I still hold that as one of my highlights of my life.
The basketball ring.
This basketball ring. I was there for it all.
Chad started the whole thing.
Yes, and the girl who made the really strong face when he said that, and they posted it all over. That was a friend of mine who I invited to stand on stage. So I'll never be asked to come back and do anything for him again.
You ended Ted Cruz's career. Congratulations, Mr. Malicoat.
But no, I think in that case, I'm all for straight tickets need to go away. I think, and it's more just because people need to get involved. They need to understand who they're voting for. My grandpa was a straight ticket Union Democrat his whole life, till he voted for an 18-year-old to run for sheriff because she put her name on the ballot. I said, "Did you really vote for her?" "Well, I voted straight ticket Democrat." He said, "Did I really vote for her?" And that was the last time he voted straight ticket.
Yeah.
it's just, everyone needs to understand and get involved. So that's my reasoning for getting rid of straight tickets.
Well, and you really do need to educate yourself as you vote, as you cast a ballot, or you don't cast a ballot, because you don't have to vote in every race. You really should vote for the people that you want to serve you. And
absolutely.
And you should send a message if you don't agree with the candidates in the race, like this case in Alabama. You should undervote it. Nobody has first claim to your vote, and we see that 22% or 22,700 people voted with a write-in, whether they voted for a Republican write-in, they voted for the Libertarian, or they voted for Nick Saban, the head football coach at Alabama, which one of the PACs tried to get people to do. Those people actually sent a message. And, by the way, that was more than the margin of difference. So
yes.
Roy Moore and the Republicans didn't earn those 22,000 votes, and that's why Doug Jones is going to be serving the U.S. Senate this year.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
But you have to applaud those people. I mean, I really do.
And that's what we've talked about on the show before. Like, if you think that you're wasting your vote whenever you vote third party just because someone didn't win, you're wrong. Because Donald Trump made a tweet congratulating Doug Jones for his Senate win, and he mentioned it's probably due to the large amount of people who voted third party. Like, it got the president's attention. Like, you're making waves. You're not wasting your vote. If anything, you're wasting your vote more by voting for someone that you might not agree with, right?
It also, in your numbers here, the exit polls show, or I guess it wasn't the exit polls, it's just reality. 33% of people showed up.
Yeah, it was.
So it's a special election.
That's what was crazy, and that's only registered voters, right?
Yeah,
that's not just the state. 33% of registered voters in Alabama actually voted in this election. And you look at the numbers, like Doug Jones, he had 49.9% of the vote, which was 670,551 people.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. Roy Moore had 649,240 people. And then you had the 22,777 that voted for the other candidate.
Basically, the population of Newcastle is all that shifted that race.
Yeah.
You picture that. That's the amount of people it would take, is the city of Newcastle, Indiana, roughly.
But I wanted to bring up, it's like the size of Indianapolis that voted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the entire state. And Birmingham's a huge city.
It absolutely.
So that's what blows my mind more than anything. The little amount of people that actually voted in this Senate race, especially with all the national media attention that it garnered. I thought for sure it would have been a lot more than that.
So we have been saying that Doug Jones is going to be seated. However, Roy Moore hasn't quit yet.
He has not.
He rode out of the polls on his horse, and he's finally made it to town and got a newspaper. And it says that he's about 1.5% out, or just 1.7 off, somewhere at 1.7, 1.8. But they're waiting on military ballots to come back. So he's hoping that the military, which probably will tend to give him an advantage, is going to close the gap down to 1.5. He can pay for a recount. Is that right, Dakota?
Yes, he can pay for a recount at 1.5.
And then at 0.5, at 0.5%, it's an automatic recount at that the taxpayers will pay for.
Correct.
So I guess their Secretary of State probably can't certify yet.
But where it is now, like he basically said that he's not going to agree with these results, right? So what happens at that point is that the Moore campaign actually has to pay for this recount out of pocket.
Yep.
So he's got to pay for all of it, and he will not be reimbursed unless he wins unless the recount shows that he wins. Which is just crazy for me, because that's actually like a really big margin that he lost by, if you're considering it. The 1.4%, like, I mean, you're pretty sure at that point you're talking 50-some thousand people, you know. You don't just miss that.
We had a town council candidate as a libertarian we had a candidate that lost by like 7 or 8 votes in southern Indiana last year, and we reached into our pockets as a state party and came up with about $3,000 or $4,000 to pay for her recount. For one town, for a 7-vote deal that we probably knew wasn't going to turn out in our favor, but it was just to support our candidate. If they're truly going to sit there and pay for a recount across the entire state when they're down by 20,000 votes, that's fool's gold. They just need to move on. Because the seat's up again in 2 years, right? I think Sessions was at the end of his term nearly.
Mm-hmm.
So and now the next focus should really be. I guess they're gonna have a special election in Minnesota if Al Franken ever quits.
When he does, I don't know. Is he going to quit the day before he term's up?
Could be. He says he's going out. So the governor has appointed his lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
Whenever he quits, that she will fill him. Just like is it Luther Strange has been serving since Sessions left in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the year of 3 popes, the year of 3 senators for that state. So Strange is there. He lost the primary, a very close primary. He lost to Mo Brooks, not Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks would have probably won if he had run for senator from Alabama. Mel Brooks would have won. But Mo Brooks and Luther Strange split, and that's what allowed Moore to win.
Yeah.
So I guess you're going to have the same kind of thing happen. You have a special election in Minnesota.
Yep.
Minnesota has had a guy named Tim Pawlenty was elected governor as a Republican.
We'll
up
see
there,
if there
so
are
they've
any
done
child molesters in that race. We'll cover it on the Boss Hog of Liberty if there are.
But Michelle Bachmann is another big Minnesota Republican name that we've seen. So I think they have some people that could raise money. And once again, when you only have one seat open, one race at a time, the Republicans won Ted Kennedy's seat with Scott Brown 6 years ago or 7 years ago. So it's entirely possible that this 51-49 thing could go back to 52-48 again.
Exactly, and we're getting really tight there. So I'm sure that the national folks, that you'll have those donations fly in from all over the country to support those races, and this one was no different. He had support from all over the country.
The vice president has already had to do, I think, 5 tiebreakers. I saw that in the paper today.
Yeah.
And he's probably on track to have to do the most tie-breaking votes of any vice president in modern history. He actually canceled his trip to Israel. He was supposed to get to Israel today or tomorrow, and he canceled it because he was expecting to have to break a tie on this, potentially will have to break a tie on this tax bill.
The tax bill, yeah.
So I'm guessing you're supporting that, Chad.
I am. Yeah. I am supporting the tax bill.
I checked it today for Audrey and I think it'll end up saving us about $1,400 a year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's the Senate plan.
But you
House plan
must be
about
you must be in the elite then. Because I heard I heard the middle class. It was going to hurt everybody.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So you must.
We're very elite. Very white collar here. That's
with one college student and a guy in the second year of his career. You've got to be really pulling bank.
Yeah. That's
how it is.
I saw.
And we're north of Q Avenue. So
yeah, that's it. So yeah.
He's in West Belmont. Should we start calling it that now? West Belmont.
West Belmont.
Hey, he's got his own studio room.
He does. I mean, this is an impressive room. The first look at it, I got to say, I'm impressed.
This is probably the #1 podcast studio in all of Henry County.
Yeah.
And I would honestly, I've been in WMDH's studios. I'll take ours.
I was going to say, I might even stretch to East Central Indiana, man. I think you got it going on here.
Is that a new cake poster?
It is.
Yeah, it is. That was actually a wedding gift from Jeremiah Morrell.
Thanks for pointing that out, Chase. I'll give you the $20 later.
Thank you.
It goes with the framed We're Libertarians poster on the wall.
If you look at the new Boss Hog of Liberty stickers that we haven't advertised those very much, but we've been giving them out to guests. The new logo up on the headphones, it actually says East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. So
we're also Indiana's #1 tractor podcast.
Yeah, that is for the entire state.
Yes,
so.
we get a lot of combine tweets and Snapchats. But now that the fields are done, people are putting the equipment away for the year. We're in the lean times right now. We don't get nearly as many tractor tweets. I'm hoping snowplow season picks it up for us.
I'm not wanting snow. With this surgery coming up, I don't want to mess with snow.
Oh, man, if you're means, you're not shoveling your own driveway anyway.
Yeah, I got the snowblower.
This year.
I got the 30-inch snowblower, man.
Man.
Yeah. I haven't had to touch it since I moved to the new house.
Now we know who the elite is.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure the Planning Commission is going to hear his application for a heated driveway soon.
Yeah,
he's going to need a variance for that.
Sure. I'll put it in the new 400 amp service right on.
Are you on the REMC or the other service?
I am. I'm an REMC. Shannon would probably love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would probably love it.
Supporting the locals.
Yeah.
So I want to get into these demographics real quick.
All right, you do it.
I want to start reading these numbers off for people who care about this because for me it's really interesting.
All right, now if you're driving, I want you to focus right now and not veer off the road as you're getting the numbers. Just hang tight, take a sip of coffee, and here we go.
You're going to hear a lot of them. So these demographics I actually pulled off of the Washington Post. And they had it in a nice graph format, but that I couldn't copy the picture and put it on the Word document, unfortunately. So we just got the numbers written down. So for this is based off of sex and ethnicity. So between white men were 35% of the voters that turned out for this Alabama Senate election. 26% of those voted for Doug Jones and 2% voted for the third-party candidate, while 72% of white males, 35% of the voters, voted for Roy Moore. White women were 31% of the voters. So right there, already you have the white demographic as 66% of the vote totals, right? Which is actually kind of low for
Well, they still have a poll tax in Alabama, right?
a poll tax.
Yeah. Well, I guess that went away some time ago.
I think it did.
Okay.
Those are Jim Crow laws.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're old enough to remember those. Maybe
I've asked
Chad is.
Yeah. Around the 70s, back when you were allowed to date teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so white women were 31% of the voters. 34% of those voted for Doug Jones. 2% voted for the third party or an other candidate. And then 63% voted for Roy Moore. So there's 10% of a difference there just between the white men and the white women.
I'm honestly surprised he still pulled 63% of women of any category.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm shocked that he did.
And then
Welcome to Alabama.
Yeah. And then black men. So of African American men, that was 11% of the voters, which is pretty high for a place like Alabama, especially. And 93% of black males voted for Doug Jones. Only 1% voted for a write-in candidate or a third party, and 6% voted for Roy Moore, which we've seen kind of a trend where African Americans will typically vote for Democrats because typically African Americans live in more urban areas, and urban areas just they typically lean to the left. Like they're more blue on the map whenever you look at urban places. And then here's where it gets pretty interesting, because African American women, black women, were 17% of the vote, which is huge. Which is like in places like Indianapolis, you have the African American women are typically 6% of the voters. So like 17% is a big deal. Like whenever you look at these, whenever you think about the numbers and you think, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? It takes some thought. You really have to start thinking about it, because that's a big deal. It's showing that people are starting to pay attention, right? So people aren't maybe they're just watching the news more. Maybe they're just looking at their Facebook posts, things that their friends share on Facebook. But whatever it is, like people are turning out to the polls more, right? So
17% of women were black, or of voters were black women, and 11% were black men. So there's a 6% spread.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because of of people that are incarcerated? I honestly, that's where I would go first. Is that the policies that they've had in Alabama?
It could be, yeah, because
have caused people to not be there.
Absolutely, and like one of the things is, and like,
you had a 4% spread where there were 4% more white men that were voters versus white women.
It's at the point where we're a bunch of white guys sitting around a table talking about this, right? And we're sitting here and we're talking about black women and black men voters, and we brought up the incarceration rates, okay? And it's easy for us to say, well, just look at the statistics. Black men commit more crimes, right? And statistically speaking, that is absolutely correct. But
we pass more laws that create crimes.
Exactly. That's the thing that has to happen. Each law that you pass creates a criminal. Every time that you pass an ordinance on a city council, you're creating a criminal. And a lot of times it is geared towards people in urban communities, right? So what we just discovered on the last point was that typically African American people live in urban communities. So whenever you're passing these laws, you are making more criminals, but a lot of times you're making more criminals out of black men and black women. And that's what people talk about when they talk about systematic oppression. We're not talking about segregated drinking fountains or sitting at the back of the bus anymore. We're talking about passing laws that they don't seem unjust, right? They seem like we're actually caring about the people. But whenever you're throwing people in prison for a plant, you've created a problem. And all of a sudden, you can't legally vote anymore. You can't exercise that freedom anymore because you had a plant on your person that makes you tired and hungry. That's a horrible issue, and I think that you're right, Jeremiah. I think that is why typically we see a low turnout of African-American male voters. And because they can't vote anymore, we've taken that freedom away from them. And I think that if we had more elections like this, we would see higher turnouts, see elections that were so highly covered by the media, where people were under such scrutiny. We were talking about it more. The entire nation was talking about this Senate election. And it was just because one guy was being called a child molester. But if we can get to the point as a nation where we're talking about these elections, not because one guy's a child molester, but because we actually care about the issues, right?
I'd be fine if we just quit letting people vote for senators. We get rid of the constitutional law or the amendment to the Constitution that allows for direct election of senators and let the state legislature do it. Honestly,
I would not disagree with that. That's the way it was intended when we first had it. The senators there were there to represent the states, not the people. People were represented by the Congress.
It would be the slower
House.
cooling pot that it's supposed to be versus this totally politicized. Of course,
in Indiana, you wouldn't have a Joe Donnelly.
Well, I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
And many states right now, how many do we have that are Republican-controlled states with the governorships? I mean, it's...
I know that it would make some changes, but I also think...
changes, and that's why I won't disagree with it, because it definitely helps my party.
But I'm ignoring party in this, Chad. Honestly, the purpose of the Senate is to be the cooling place.
I get you.
And to have some decorum and to have things process work. And I've talked about this with Bill Smythe last week when he was here with the McKenzie campaign. Regular order is completely dead in Congress.
It is.
And, Indiana, at least we pretend, and I know Brad Klopfenstein sat in your chair last week, Chad, and said that the deals are cut at the Antelope Club versus at Chase.
Chad.
Yeah, whatever. Chad here, Chase there. This is Hanging Chad, and that's other Chad.
I wanted to go as a hanging Chad for Halloween.
You should
My
have.
wife would not let me.
Next
I
year.
want to tie a
Next
noose
year.
around my neck, just saying. Melissa, you see?
They don't know
idea.
what Hanging Chad means.
They probably don't.
Yeah, they're so young.
I thought it was
I know what it means just because of How I Met Your Mother.
All right.
Whenever the Ted,
I don't remember that episode.
Yeah, whenever Ted went as a hanging Chad for Halloween.
Okay.
Remember that? Yeah.
I don't remember that, but I'm going to have to rewatch it.
There you go. So anyway, in the Indiana General Assembly, we go through 3 readings on each side. We switch bills, and they go through conference committee, and you have testimony. This, whether you agree with it or not, and I know we're probably all going to get some money back in our pocket, regular order wasn't followed. It's nowhere close. You didn't have an amendment process. You didn't have testimony. You didn't spend in the 80s when they did tax reform, they spent years working on it.
Yeah.
They did this in a week and a half, and then next week they're going to spend time. They're going to vote to raise the debt ceiling, and they're going to continuing resolution to run the government.
Agree. It's the way legislature's done right now.
Right.
I mean, Obamacare was pushed through in a very similar facet.
The same things people were pissed off about over this on the Democrat side. The Republicans were pissed off about on the Obamacare issue.
Exactly.
And I really think that it's because we directly elect senators, and we don't have. It's just like having another House of Representatives with 100 people, but they sit there longer.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
that's exactly what it's like.
The senators are there to represent the states, not the people.
They should be representing the state's interest.
That was what they did. That was why they were there, to represent the state's interest, because the federal government should only be involved in those things held within the Constitution.
Yeah, but haven't you been watching the news? We're a democracy. What's this republic people keep talking about?
So honestly, so many of the things that are broken in politics, though, this campaign finance thing that happens, if we didn't have a U.S. Senate race where we've got 5 or 6 people that are running in Indiana that's going to cost tens of millions of dollars, if instead it was, the Indiana legislature was picking their guy 2 guys every 6 years, or two senators every 6 years, shouldn't say guys. By the way, we might actually get a woman, because I know that there's been some very qualified ladies that have run on both sides in Indiana as well. We've had a lot of lieutenant governors and other statewide office holders that would be very good senators. Anyway, that's I'll get off my soapbox on the Senate issue, but I think I think that's one of the. These are all symptoms, and I think that's a cause.
I
would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. But I just basically what I was trying to say is, like, looking at these demographics was super interesting to me, because you don't see the black woman turnout that you saw with this with this election. You don't see that anywhere else. And I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. Like, they didn't even have a 0.5% of write-in candidates to put down for black women voters. They all knew, like, Doug Jones, we don't want Roy Moore. And you can make that claim, like I have down here on this bullet point. The media portrayed Moore off to be racist, right? You know, and he made a lot of questionable statements. Like, we saw his campaign.
He can't be a racist because his lawyer was a Jew. Okay.
Yeah, that's
his wife said it in a speech.
His
the
wife
night before
said.
the election.
His wife said we aren't racist against Jews. Our lawyer's a Jew. Like that's like looking at your black person that's black on the street and they call you racist and you're like, no, I have a black friend. Like, yeah, that's usually not what your response should be. Like, I think that Chappelle Show actually did a skit on that about, like, oh, my second cousin's boyfriend's brother is black, so I can't be racist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I hope the Republican Party does a lot like Rand Paul tried to when he was running for president in 2016 and actually goes out and tries to make an effort in those communities, because I think I definitely agree with about 35% of what the Republicans say, and I agree with about 35% what the Democrats say. There are things that your platform has that would actually be very good for all communities, but. The messaging and getting there and actually making an attempt to reach out, I think, is what has to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things, like that Ben Shapiro and Milo Yiannopoulos talk about is it's like the old Union Democrats, right? People vote this way, and the right is just as bad. The redneck South is just as bad about voting Republican as what African American voters are about voting Democrat. Nobody wants to vote differently. My daddy voted this way. I'm going to vote this way, right? Mm-hmm. So that's people get stuck in this pattern and are afraid to deviate from it. But you listen to these college speakers like Ben Shapiro talk, and it's like, why don't you try something different? Obviously, the guy that you've been voting for the past 40 years as a family isn't working for you anymore. Try something different this time.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of folks are trying to do that, to get to these grassroots and get to some of the things that are happening. But it's tough to beat the media too, like you said on here. I mean, 'cause sometimes in these races, it's kind of like... Have you
tried creating your own media empire? Because it's worked for us.
That it could be an interesting idea. Maybe I need to. I have an extra room in the house here. No, I mean the media has taken everything and controls so much of the rhetoric on TV, on broadcast, on print, what's still left out there. And, it's hard to fight against some of those things.
You heard it all the time with this election, especially from the right. Well, the media won this election. The media won. The media is why Roy Moore didn't win. Well, you heard it all the time, and it might be true. That's why
the media is the most influential player in any election anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, Trump's election is a perfect example of that.
Melissa Malicoat says, no, I don't think so. So it's been crushed already. Your dream of having a home studio, it's done. I apologize.
We'll talk about that later.
There you go. He still has hope in his life.
I have a big office up in Delville. We got 6,500 square feet, green screen upstairs.
There we go.
Yeah, we can make it happen.
I was really pulling for Nick Saban. I thought he was going to do better. Everything he's done for Alabama,
but the Miami voters, Miami hates him.
Be curious just to find out what number he get. We'll have to find that out.
We'll have to see what all the write-ins, if they report them. In Indiana, if you're not an official write-in candidate, they won't report your number. Only if you were an official candidate. So we'll have to see. Time will tell.
Man, I'm reading through these show notes, and I'm pretty sure that we've already covered all of them.
We're there, man. So it's that time for final thoughts. Chad, what do you want to plug? Membership? Are you trying to recruit candidates? You want people to show up and support or speak their mind on Monday night? How do people follow you? All those good things.
I want people to show up on Monday, speak their mind about the issues at the park, the Doughboy especially, and I won't plug me or any candidate. Just get involved. Get involved, get educated, understand what's going on in your life, because it does make a big difference. Local is important. That's what I try to tell everybody. Get involved locally, because it can drastically change your life with just 4 people.
How do people follow you? Do you email, Facebook? What's the best way to follow
email. I think I still have my political Facebook thing up. So
for a possible future
you
something.
You never know. I still have my account open. I still have to file my CFA.
How much money we got in there?
I think it's got like $180 in it. It's rocking right now.
Rolling deep.
Yeah, I tell you that it's a lot. I'm open to donations.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you, Chad, for being here.
Hey,
very
I
much.
Appreciate the invite. It was exciting and I had a lot of fun.
I don't think we ruined your political career today, so
I don't think
we'll call
so.
this
We might have made a little dent in it, but we can smooth that out.
That'll buff out.
Yeah.
Chase, man, the returning veteran.
I know.
What? How do people follow you? You got any final thoughts on the conversation tonight, or things we missed out on?
I heard before we started that you voted.
Turn your mic in here.
Oh,
there we go.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard before we started that you either voted or you were a big part of wanting to move the statue, the Doughboy statue.
Yeah. So I was serving on the park board at the time, and I was one of the votes. I think it was a unanimous vote to go ahead and move forward with the plan that was put forward by Mr. Peckinpah. Like I said before, there was no plan to refurbish the Doughboy or do anything with it. Mm-hmm. Steve came forward with a plan to take it down, refurbish it, and had the vision for creating this plaza outside of the Smith building. So yeah, I fully supported that. Otherwise, it was just going to sit there and decay.
May I add that in the entire month's process, the several months long process, there was zero opposition to the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say like the Save the Doughboy the wristbands. I want one. So if you guys are pissed at Jeremiah, I have his address. So if you want to go to his house and beat him up or like protest outside or something, I'll give it to you if you hit me up.
Most of the county knows where I live.
You don't have mine, right?
I don't have yours.
You can find it. Just Google.
If I find his, I want a T-shirt for his.
Well, very good. Chase, how do they follow you?
Just on Facebook, Chase Peyton. Snapchat, it's Bro Montana 95. That's about it. I don't ever post anything, just don't follow me. You really like.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So you're becoming a true broadcaster, and we're excited.
Yeah, we put on here that this is episode 34 with Memorial Park Board President Chad Malicoat and Boss Hog of Liberty regular Chase Peyton.
Ooh,
regular.
Yeah, have me on any time.
We're gonna have to get you on the official co-host page. You and Danny and some of the others that we have on all the time. We'll get the little bio and get the picture. And this is my promise to you, Chase.
Oh.
We're gonna have you listed as a co-host on there. You've earned it.
Hey.
You take off the yellow rookie stripe. So Dakota,
you're gonna have to get some T-shirts and stuff.
That's it. We need merch. Well, Dakota's got some stuff. But we need real merch.
My final thoughts. This is December 14th, 2017. It is 8:43 p.m. Eastern Time, and I would like to say that net neutrality has died. That is the breaking news story for today.
We are broadcasting live on the internet, but you did have to put a quarter in before we could go live this time, I think.
Yep, I think now
that Comcast can charge you extra.
Yep. If you want to hear our thoughts on that, then you can go back to the episode on net neutrality with Jesse Riddle.
I think it was episode 31.
Yep, and I just want to say that I'm interested to see how this goes. I want to see if we're going to start getting charged for Facebook for Netflix. Like everybody says we were, or if it's just going to be fine. Like
the world was coming to an end when it went into place. We'll see what happens when it went over.
I think we're going to go back to 2015 internet, and I guess we'll just have to live with the freedom that we had then.
Yeah, but 2015 internet, man, that's like Mad Max, right?
Yeah, I can hear my dial-up modem running again.
It's a lawless wasteland.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did want to point that out because that was breaking news across my my feed on my HTC. Was telling me that the FCC did vote to overturn all of the Obama-era regulations with net neutrality. So wanted to throw that in here so that I can at least put the hashtag on whenever I put up the YouTube video.
So Atokad Savad on the Twitter.
It's at Atokad Savad, which is Dakota Davis spelled backwards. That is on the Twitter. I don't really post on Twitter very much, but I do post and share things and share and make dank memes on Facebook, and you can follow me there, which is just Dakota Davis, and it's a picture of Audrey and myself as my Facebook profile picture.
So appreciate you joining us again. 34 episodes in a row together. I think we're starting to get pretty good at this.
Yeah.
More forced friendship.
Joining us again. I am us.
I even let Dakota do the introduction on one of the previous shows, on the Smythe episode, I think. Let him. Of course, we did this one, and he walks away as soon as we get started, so whatever.
Yeah.
The final thoughts for me, real quick. Breaking news, the Courier-Times, our local paper here, published that the city of Newcastle is suing the opioid manufacturers for our epidemic. I know a number of other communities have done that. I think they're suing the wrong group. I think they probably ought to sue the legislature that's has been advancing policies of prohibition against alcohol and
marijuana
and cannabis and CBD oil.
Yeah.
I think
you're going after
if they
the
deal
wrong
with that
people.
issue, you might have a little bit better results.
Yeah.
So, and I know
agree
that
with
that's on the agenda, and we're expecting to have some changes. But
So funny. Most people around here think that if you're in favor of cannabis, then you must be a dopehead. No. No. I get drug tested by the state for my CDL license. I am not going to take the risk of smoking any weed. I just think that an adult should have the freedom to do as he pleases with his own body.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll watch that story, keep an eye on it, but look for that in the paper tomorrow. You can follow me at Jeremiah Morrell on Twitter. As always, appreciate you listening. Look us up on the YouTube. On the YouTube. Oh, God, I'm old, Chad. On the YouTube, it's on the line. Like and subscribe on there. We need to get to that 100 subscribers, and of course, the way the show gets into your feed is by liking and sharing the page. So when you get this video in your feed, like it, share it, subscribe to the podcast, and you can rate us 5 stars on iTunes too if you like it. And if you don't, just leave it alone. We'll catch you all next time. Oh, Chad's got something else.
I'm just going to be anti-PC and say Merry Christmas.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to be gone next week, so I can do that.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Happy
Merry
Hanukkah.
Yes. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the We're Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at We'reLibertarians.com.